Okay, folks, here we are at the glue table, okay? And we're going to glue a piece together we just cut, our spring safe. Now, I don't know about where you live, but in Cincinnati, where I live, these kind of clamps can only be found at a flea market, okay? Now, these are, not an Arnold Schwarzenegger clamp. They're very soft, okay? Two-finger clamp. So they don't destroy the wood. Small plastic spring clamp, refrigerator magnet clamp. These you can buy at hardware stores, these wee little magnet clamps. And of course, small bar clamps, all different styles, but they all do the same thing. And then weights. We like to use weights. These are just chunks of brass, about a pound each. If you don't have weights, Campbell's soup cans work quite well, okay? But I digress. Let's get some glue out. I am using, it says Elmer's, but it's actually, I like their bottles better than Titebond. So I buy the Titebond #1 by the gallon and refill my old Elmer's wood glue bottles. But I prefer Elmer's or Titebond, either one. This is our project. We'll start with the bottom real quick. Okay. We have our two drawers which have to be glued together and the bottoms go on, and we have the body of the box itself. I have a piece of 180 grit sandpaper. Here is how you sand to prepare to glue. Inside edge only. I'm done sanding. Okay? Sanding is not that tough. You do not want to touch the bottom itself with the sandpaper, especially the outside edges. You don't want to touch the base plate at all with the sandpaper. Just take the burr off the inside edge. Now I have put on this piece before I cut it a joining mark. So you can see my line right here lines up, so I know which way to put the box back together. So we put our glue on the piece, and this is where the fun comes in, okay? This is where you got to pay attention. This is where you got to take your time. And it's maybe a bit aggravating to some people, but as you put water-based glue on, it soaks into the wood, it excites the fibers, and they stand up. And the wetter they get, the more excited they get, and the more they stand up. And the more they stand up, the better your joint is going to be. And the better your joint is, the better your box is. When somebody looks at you and asks how you possibly could have made those cuts without going all the way through the wood, you smile. Now what I've done right here is I wiped off glue on the inside, it's on my finger, and I put it back on the outside. I don't want a lot of glue squeezing into the box. I want the glue squeezing out of the box. So nice and heavy on that outside edge. And while we talk, we let it sit for a minute, okay? And I'm putting it together gently, lining it up gently, and letting it sit for a second while we're talking, okay? We're taking a little bit of time here, because we're not in a rush. Now, ultimately, I want to see glue coming out all the way around this piece. So, I'm going to get some clamps here. I'm going to start at the back. Now you have to be very, very careful with clamps, because only the very tip of the clamp can be used. because the clamp has a shoulder inside to give it some strength. So if you're not very, very careful, you will cut grooves in your boxes. Here's the shoulder I'm referring to right here. You can only catch the tip. Okay, you can see we got a really wonderful bead of glue coming out all the way around there. Don't wipe it off, just leave it. It's fine where it is. Set that piece aside. Next we've got our drawers to deal with. We've got 2 drawers. Now once again, we do a lot of sanding here, guys, remember? There we go, that was tough. You can tell I hate sanding. Okay, now when we cut these drawers out, you can see when I came in and out, I left this little edge right here. That edge I left on there, so when I put glue on it, squeeze it together good, rub it in a little bit, hold it in my fingertips. I can then clamp this way, and it's in place. Now I glue the bottom on the same way as I did on our last piece. And I know this can be boring, but again, take your time, smear the glue around, give it time to get the wood soaking wet. Put it together. Let it sit just for a minute before you go to put pressure on it, okay? Now the other thing we have to do on this one is we have to put our shoulders in. So look at your shoulders and see if they need to be deburred a little bit. Now the thing about putting the shoulders in is they tend to, the action of the clamp tends to pull the shoulder up if you're not very careful. The shoulder will come up off the bottom of the box when you clamp it, and then your inside lid will not go in. So you need to be very careful that when you clamp your shoulders, you push them down at the same time you're clamping them. Now this clamp here isn't needed anymore. We clamp our drawer together, and these nice soft refrigerator magnets, we put those on the so that's how a drawer gets glued together. Now you do exactly the same thing with this drawer that you did with that one. Glue on your bottom, glue on your shoulders, seam it together. Now your drawers are done. Then you have the body itself, which you have to glue up. Now this requires, generally speaking, a wee bit more sanding, but not much. Again, you want all the burrs off the bottom, so there's nothing to interrupt the joint. Okay, I'm going to put glue on the bottom just like I did on the other pieces. Stop it. I've put my glue around the bottom. I made sure it's clear around the keyholes here because we don't want a lot of glue squeezing in there. Otherwise, our keys won't sit flat. So I'm going to put this together like here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come off of the edge of the table. Putting my lid on. Now, I'm not a fan of bar clamps, so I only use them when necessary. I have a mountain of them, but I prefer weight. So I have put 8 weights on top of this puppy, and now I'm coming to the front here, and I'm going to put clamps on the front end of it. Okay. That is our first step in gluing. Okay, right now, what do we have left to glue, huh? Well, we have our shoulder to glue in, our joiner to glue in. We have our framework to glue in behind our release. And we have our little because we could box to put together and glue in also. So we're going to wait on these for now till the glue sets on this. Once our glue sets on this, then we'll put these other pieces in and together. At this point, you want to let things set, you know, an hour is good, okay? Just let them relax for an hour or so, and then we'll move to the next step. And the next step will be gluing the two halves of the body together and gluing the insides in. So take a break for a minute, go get a drink, use the John, whatever you got to do, have a good time, chase the wife around the house, whatever, and then we'll get back to this in about another hour or so. See ya. Okay, we're back. We've unweighted and unclamped our top section. Now we've got our insides to put in place. So we will start with our release mechanism and its framework. It goes in here, and that goes in around it. So first make sure you got it in the right way. I don't. That's the right way. That's the way it matches. I know that now. It's sitting lined up, so it's going to go the right way. Now I'm going to sand the bottom of this, lightly deburr it, and then I'm going to put a bevel on the two bottom corners. Okay? The reason for this is if any glue squeezed inside, it's going to prevent this from going up against the side. So I put in a little bevel here and here. This goes back in place. I put my glue. And here you have to be very frugal with your glue. Normally we like not to be frugal. Glue is cheap. But here we want to be frugal because we do not want the glue to smear anywhere on the inside of the box. It will leave a mark that you cannot make go away. So a little bit of glue on these. Not nearly so much it's going to squeeze out, but each end and the bottom, and then you gently insert it without letting it rub on the sides of the thing. Hold it in place with your fingertip and make sure you pull this out. Now we have our joiner right here. Same thing, we're going to put glue almost to the top, but not quite. Again, we don't want any glue squeezing out of this. So a bit of glue there. Put him in place. Our shoulder. Keeping it away from the top so none squeezes out the top. Put it in place. Clamp on there and make sure it's pushed down. Push it down, clamp on there. Now our last piece to put inside the box is our Because We Can box. And the same thing that we did to our joiner or our release framework. We bevel the bottom edges. So here's the top. The bottom corners right here and here are beveled. We put our glue around it. Put it in place. And the same thing we did in the back of the box. We insert this without pushing it on the walls. We don't want it to smear. We get it in place. We hold it in nice and snug. And we bring a piece out. Now the inside of the box is good to set and wait on while we do our wee little inside box. Again, the bottom needs to be deburred. Okay. Glue on top and bottom. Make sure all our lines match up. There's our little Because We Can box glued up. And now we have to do the same thing to the drawer. Just as we did, no different than the drawer in the box itself. It's just join the seam in the bottom. So I squirted glue in where I cut through to join the seam. And if you're wondering, yes, I am smearing the glue on the bottom of the table. It's all right. It's a work table. That takes care of the joint where I came in. And a few little clamps around this puppy to hold it together. Okay. Now our next step will be to glue the body together. Okay, folks. So we've got all of our internal and such gluing done. Here's our two drawers. Now we have to go to the drill press and put magnets. So what I've done here is I've pushed this drawer all the way back in place, and I've drilled a 1/4 inch hole. And into that 1/4 inch hole, I have placed a wee 1/4 inch by 1/8 inch rare earth magnet. N is in Nancy 52, most powerful magnet they make. In the drawer, in the body itself, I put a 1/2 inch by 1 32nd thick N52 magnet. So this will catch the magnetic box and hold it in place. Now, once you've done that, put your magnets in place. Then we have to glue these two together. So, set all of our pieces aside, out of the way. We'll put our top on. And we're very, very careful here. Put a good bead of glue to the outside. And this is going to give us the best seam possible. And you know, when people marvel at your piece and can't find the seams and start to call you a liar, don't be offended. Smile at them. Say thank you. They're there. You just got to look really close. Again, I'm pulling the glue off the inside, putting it back on the outside. Now, since we cut off a little kerf here, we're actually going to back up the box just a little bit. So the front edge will be just a smidgen back, okay? That takes care of back in here where you've cut up to make a good joint. Now, just like we did before when we glued the bottom onto this piece, we're going to use weights. And I want to make very, very sure that everything is lined up just as perfectly as I can get it. I should be seeing by now a pretty good bead of glue coming out all the way around that puppy. And on here, I don't know if my springs may be big enough or I may have to use bar clamps. Whenever I can use spring clamps, I'd rather. There we go. They'll still fit. Okay, and look at that beautiful bead of glue. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Wonderful. Okay, that's our piece glued up. Now it has to sit for a while for that glue to dry. Because we've put glue on two joints very near one another within an 1/4 inch away from each other, right here in the middle of this box. The wood is going to swell. Now you're not going to see it visibly, but it will swell. So if you sand it too soon, before the water leaves the wood, what's going to happen is the side right here is going to concave. It's still swelling out, and when you sand it flat, and then the water goes back out of it, it shrinks even more. So let it sit for a few days at least before you attempt to sand it. So our next part of the video is going to be about how to sand this piece, put in the spring, and make it all work now. So stand by for that. Thanks.